Emily Dawson never imagined that a blueberry scone and a misspelled name would alter the course of her entire life. But sometimes destiny arrives disguised as just another ordinary Tuesday morning. Maple and Sage was tucked neatly beneath the towering Glasswell Tower in downtown Chicago, a place people stopped by more out of convenience than loyalty. For Emily, it had been her world for nearly 3 years, a space filled with the scent of warm butter and the soft chime of glass doors opening every few minutes. That morning, a gentle chill lingered in the air after an overnight rain. Emily was arranging a fresh tray of croissants when the bell above the door chimed. She looked up and greeted the customer out of habit. "Good morning. What can I get started for you?" The man who walked in looked nothing like the usual crowd. He wore a dark wool coat and carried himself with an ease that wasn't hurried. Without looking up, he said, "Large black coffee, no sugar, no cream." Emily smiled and scribbled a name across the paper cup. Nathan. Not because he said it, but because he didn't. When she handed him the cup, she offered a small joke. "If I guessed wrong, next one's on me." He looked up then, steel gray eyes sharp but unreadable. "It's Nathan, with an A." "My mistake," Emily chuckled. "But hey, sometimes a wrong name means something's about to go right." He didn't respond, just took the cup, nodded once, and walked out into the current of the city's morning chaos. Emily watched him go, oddly aware of how fast her heart was beating for someone she didn't even know. Nathan Caldwell was unlike anyone she'd ever served. It wasn't just the tailored coat or the commanding posture. It was the silence, the kind of quiet that demanded your attention without a single word. Emily turned back to her routine, serving the middle-aged woman who always ordered sugar-free raspberry scones, crafting lattes for a giggling trio of interns, chatting with the security guard who called her Sunshine every morning. But Nathan lingered in her mind like a song she couldn't shake. A few minutes later, Celia, her coworker, leaned in with a raised eyebrow. "Who was that guy? The one just now?" Emily shrugged. "Never seen him before, but definitely not your average office drone." What she didn't know was that several floors above, in a glass-walled corner office, Nathan Caldwell was standing at his window, looking down at the bakery with an unreadable expression. And for the first time in years, he remembered someone's name who wasn't tied to a business deal or a quarterly report. That day, he kept the coffee cup, with the wrong name on it, in his hand through his entire meeting. He never threw it away. The next morning at exactly 9:42 a.m., Nathan Caldwell appeared again. Emily had just handed off an order to a group of office workers when she looked up and saw him walking in. Same steady stride, same sharp gaze that seemed to scan the world without surprise. But this time, he looked directly at her as he stepped up to the counter. Large, black. "No sugar," he said, as if they were picking up a conversation they'd left unfinished. Emily smiled, grabbed a fresh cup, and wrote Nathan in neat, bold letters. "Today I promise to get it right," she said, sliding the cup toward him. He took it, eyes scanning the name. "Progress," Nathan said quietly, then turned and left at his usual unhurried pace. And just like that, every morning at exactly 9:42 he came back. At first it was just polite greetings. Then came small talk. "Anything new in the pastry case today? Still open in this cold? Your coffee's better than what they serve on the 19th floor." Eventually they started calling each other by name. No longer the guy in the gray coat or the girl with the warm smile. Something quiet began to grow between them. Emily started noticing the small things. How he tilted slightly left to avoid the morning glare from the window. How he glanced at the menu even though he always ordered the same thing. He never checked his phone while speaking with her. And every time he left, he gave a subtle nod. An almost private goodbye just for her. Celia noticed it first. "Why are you always smiling in the mornings?" she teased. "Mr. Black Coffee got you blushing?" Emily brushed it off with a smile. But deep down, she knew she had started to look forward to 9:42, like it was a chapter in her day that made everything else worth reading. To Nathan, Emily wasn't the kind of woman who usually turned heads in boardrooms or cocktail lounges. She didn't try to be charming. She didn't wear loud makeup or dress to impress. And yet there was something about her, a quiet, grounded presence that made it impossible for him not to return. He met hundreds of people each week, Investors, attorneys, assistants, advisors. They were articulate, polished, strategic. Everyone had a motive. But Emily was different. She didn't push conversation. She didn't try to extend their interaction. She didn't need him to smile back. She just existed, fully and authentically. Nathan started to notice that he was waiting for 9:42 every morning. Not for the coffee, but for those few rare minutes where he got to feel like a normal man. In that warm glow of the little bakery, Emily didn't look at him like a billionaire. She called him Nathan, like he was just a guy who drank his coffee black and liked his buttered scones a little overdone on the edges. Her simplicity wasn't shallow. It was hard-earned, formed from years of working, living, and paying attention to the small things others missed. When she asked, "Are you okay?" it wasn't polite filler. It was genuine concern. Nathan thought he was used to being noticed, but this was the first time he felt truly seen, and that terrified him and made it impossible to stay away. One Friday morning, Nathan came in later than usual. The shop was packed. The line stretched almost to the door. Emily felt a twinge of disappointment until he walked in at 9:58, his eyes scanning the room until they landed on her. He didn't push through the line. He just stood, waiting for her to notice him. "I thought maybe you weren't coming today," Emily said as she handed him his coffee. "Meeting ran longer than expected," Nathan replied, then leaned in slightly. "Do you take lunch breaks?" Emily hesitated. "A short one. Why?" "I'd like to ask you something," he said, placing a folded card on the counter. Inside was the address of a small eatery just a few blocks away. "If you're free," no promises, no pressure, just an invitation. But to Emily, it felt like a door quietly opening. That entire afternoon, she couldn't stop thinking about him. Nathan Caldwell, with his quiet eyes and measured presence, was unlike anyone she'd ever met. He didn't pry into her personal life, didn't offer empty compliments, but every conversation with him left Emily feeling like she'd actually been heard. She didn't know what they were or what they might become, but she did know this. From the moment she misspelled his name, she had gotten one thing absolutely right. He was different. That evening, Emily showed up. The little restaurant was tucked into a quiet side street, about 3 blocks from Glasswell Tower. No flashy signs, no neon lights, just a fogged-up glass window and a handwritten menu hanging by a piece of string. Nathan was already seated in a corner booth. He stood when he saw her, his gray eyes holding something different than usual. Not cold, not distant. Maybe uncertain. "You came," he said simply. Emily took off her coat and sat across from him. The small space, the soft jazz playing in the background, the smell of grilled meat, it all felt unexpectedly warm. "I used to work here," Nathan said, noticing her gaze around the room. "Back in college, dishwashing, sweeping floors, carrying drinks." Emily blinked in surprise. She had imagined Nathan belonged to the gleaming top floors, not places like this. "And now you're a CEO," she said with a soft smile. "Also the only customer I know who orders black coffee without glancing at the menu." Nathan smirked. "I haven't changed much. I just have more meetings now." They ordered spaghetti for him, meat pie for her, and began to talk. No small talk, no resume recitations. Just two people face to face, sharing parts of themselves they rarely brought out. Emily spoke of her mother, a strong woman living with her in a small rented apartment on the west side of the city. Her mom had a chronic illness, and Emily worked while saving up to study nursing. Nathan spoke of his father, a man who pushed him to become a successor, never once asking if he was happy. He once studied interior design, but gave it up because business was the better path. When he said that, his voice slowed. "I've never said this to anyone in my world," he breathed, "but when I see you in the bakery, serving people, smiling, remembering their orders, I remember who I used to be. I used to be simple." Emily didn't react with surprise, just a calm, steady gaze that told him she heard him, fully. And in that moment, Nathan felt something loosen inside him, like the tension of years was finally exhaled. "I'm not as simple as I look," she replied gently. "I just try to hold on to the parts of myself that are worth holding on to." They didn't speak much after that. They ate, Sometimes they made eye contact. Sometimes they smiled. Nothing fast, nothing dramatic, but something undeniably real. When dinner ended, Nathan walked Emily to the door, standing beneath the glow of an old street lamp. "Thanks for coming," he said. "Thanks for inviting me," she replied. No hand-holding, no promises, no request for another dinner, just silence and the beginning of something. Since their first dinner, something had shifted between them. Not in an obvious dramatic way, but in the kind that made Emily miss him every time the clock neared 9:42. Nathan still came to the bakery each morning, but now the glances they shared weren't polite. They lingered, warm and knowing, the kind that stayed with you long after someone walked away. Weeks passed. They kept their connection quiet, not out of shame, but because they understood something precious deserved the protection of silence. Until one Saturday morning, they walked together through the farmer's market near Lincoln Park. Nathan wore a gray shirt and a cap, pushing a little cart filled with vegetables. Emily laughed more than usual, hands in her coat pockets, looking at him like the entire world existed inside that cart. They stopped at a fruit stand, sampling slices of peach. Emily winced from the sourness. Nathan chuckled and gently wiped a drop of juice from her chin. That moment, so simple, so private, was captured by a long-range camera lens. The next day, their names were on the front page of a gossip site. Tech billionaire Nathan Caldwell dating bakery girl. A real-life Cinderella story? Beside it, a photo. Emily smiling up at Nathan, his head tilted toward her, holding an apple in one hand. A beautiful moment, but not meant for the public. Within 12 hours, the article spread like wildfire. Major outlets picked it up. Soon, Emily's life was dissected online. Her address, old social media posts, her job history, her schooling. Who is she? Gold digger? Another Cinderella? This won't last. At first, Emily stayed silent. She locked her accounts, turned off comments, shortened her work shifts. But people started showing up at the bakery, taking photos, whispering, treating her like a headline instead of a person. She began entering through the back door. Her mother called often, voice anxious. "Are you okay? Are they bothering you?" Nathan came to see her after closing one rainy evening. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I should have been more careful." "I don't blame you," Emily answered, though her voice wavered. I wasn't ready for your world." Nathan looked at her for a long moment. "I can handle the media. Wipe your name off the internet. Sue the photographers. Just let me take care of it." Emily shook her head. "It's not about cleaning things up. It's about, I don't want to live in hiding." A few days later, Nathan stopped coming to the bakery at 9:42. Emily waited. 1 day, 2. A week. She didn't call, didn't text, didn't cry. She just sat in the quiet and realized, if a love has to be hidden to survive, then maybe it's surviving, not living. Nathan didn't disappear all at once, but inside he had already begun pulling away the moment he saw the confusion in Emily's eyes while reading the cruel comments online. He didn't say much, just quietly watched her lock her accounts, delete old photos, avoid the familiar faces of regular customers who now whispered when she passed. Nathan had handled media crises 10 times worse than this, but this time he felt powerless. Not because he lacked the tools, but because he knew Emily didn't need a solution. She needed peace, a life she could live in, not fight through. He considered taking her away from the city, somewhere quiet, anonymous, where no one knew their names. But then he wondered, if love required disappearing, was it really love? That night, back in his apartment, Nathan stared at a coffee cup Emily had once made for him. It had long gone cold, but he still held it like it was warm. Inside him was a fear he couldn't quite name. Fear of hurting her, fear of dragging her into a world not meant for her, fear that someday his love would be the very thing that made her lose herself. And so he decided to pull away. No goodbye, no explanation. He simply stopped coming to the bakery, stopped calling her. He told himself his absence would be the gentlest form of protection. But what he didn't understand was this: you can't protect someone by leaving without giving them the choice to stay. Nathan's absence wasn't loud. There was no official breakup, no last text. He simply stopped coming. On the first day, Emily told herself maybe he was busy. On the second, she pretended not to expect anything. But by the third day, when the clock hit exactly 9:42 and the door stayed closed, she knew. He had chosen to leave. What hurt most wasn't the leaving, it was the silence. The silence from someone who once made her believe that a glance could say more than words. Now he left her to peel off each layer of rumor, endure each whisper, and try to forget someone who was never truly hers to keep. She didn't cry much. The tears didn't come as easily as she thought they would. Instead, the morning stretched longer. The scones didn't smell the same, and the soft jazz playing in the shop suddenly felt unbearably sad. Celia didn't ask questions. She simply placed a hand on Emily's shoulder and went on with her shift. Emily went home earlier, slept later, and wrote more. She started writing the things she never dared to say out loud, not to send, just to get them out. Among the pages, there were lines meant for Nathan. "You thought I needed protection, but I don't need someone to shield me from the world. I need someone willing to stand beside me, to go through it with me. Your leaving didn't save me. It only left a space I now have to fill on my own." Little by little, Emily stopped avoiding people's eyes. She no longer flinched when someone tried to take a picture. She even told a nosy reporter once, "I bake great pastries, but loving someone? That doesn't need a job title to validate it." One afternoon, after locking up the shop, she stood at the window and looked out at the street. The wind swept up a few golden leaves. In that quiet moment, Emily saw something clearly. She had been hurt, but she was never weak. And if given the chance again, she would still choose to love Nathan, even knowing how it might end. Because real love isn't something that always leads to a happy ending. It's something that makes you brave enough to keep going, even when your heart gets left behind. Time didn't erase the sadness, but it helped Emily learn how to live with it. Each day, she still woke up early, turned on the bakery lights, prepped the dough, slid trays into the oven. The routine was the same. The customers were the same. But in every motion, she slowly found pieces of herself again. Bit by bit. She no longer measured time by 9:42. Instead, she measured it by the little things, learned to breathe deeper when the missing came, and smile even when there wasn't a reason. She poured more of herself into the evening nursing classes, revisited medical books she had once put aside when emotions had taken over. Each step forward wasn't about forgetting Nathan. It was about accepting a truth. Some people walk into our lives just to teach us how to love ourselves better. Emily no longer waited for anything to arrive. She didn't expect Nathan to return, didn't place hope in things uncertain, but that didn't mean her heart had fully closed. Deep down, she knew some connections, even when severed, leave behind a lingering pulse. And sometimes the universe tests a heart that has already been broken, in quiet, unpredictable ways. On what seemed like just another ordinary afternoon, the test walked into her bakery, wrapped in a soft veil of pride, judgment, and maternal love. That morning, the air was chilly, and pale sunlight filtered through the foggy bakery windows. Emily was pouring coffee for a regular when the doorbell chimed. She looked up, her smile half-formed, and met the eyes of a stranger. The woman stepped in, tall, elegant, dressed in a light wool coat, pointed heels and leather gloves. Her makeup was subtle, hair pinned up neatly. But what struck Emily most was her gaze, steady, cold, and quietly judgmental. "You're Emily Dawson?" the woman asked, her voice smooth, more statement than question. Emily nodded softly. "Yeah, can I help you?" "I'm Charlotte Caldwell, Nathan's mother." The room seemed to still. Emily set the coffee pot down. Her hands didn't shake, but her heartbeat stumbled. "May we speak privately?" Charlotte continued, already taking a seat near the counter, like someone used to commanding a room. Emily removed her apron, walked over, and sat across from her. "I'm listening." Charlotte regarded her, like reading a file with no text. "I'm not here to insult you," she began. "I just want to understand. What is your true intention with my son?" Emily took a quiet breath. The question wasn't surprising, but coming from the mother of the man she once loved, it carried weight. "I didn't pursue Nathan," she replied, meeting her gaze. "We met like two regular people. No plan, no intention. Charlotte raised an eyebrow. A regular person? I don't believe Nathan's world is ever that simple, and you know that. I do, Emily said. I know his world is complex, pressured, structured, but love doesn't come from status. It comes from choice. And I chose to love him, not for his money, not for the Caldwell name, but because he was Nathan, a man who listens, who's kind when it matters, and silent when words aren't needed. Charlotte blinked, only slightly, but her face remained composed. You think sincerity is enough to survive in my world? The media, the shareholders, people you've never met? Emily gave a soft smile. No, I'm not naive. I know truth can be cruel, but I know this even more. Love isn't about taking. It's about having the courage to choose. Charlotte tilted her head slightly. Something in her expression shifted just for a moment. I used to think I was strong for protecting my son from what I believed was unsuitable, she said slowly. But maybe I forgot. What makes him happy might lie beyond what I understand. Emily didn't speak. For the first time in their conversation, she saw Charlotte not as Nathan's powerful mother, but as a woman wrestling with her son's heart. At last, Charlotte stood, adjusting her coat. Without meeting Emily's eyes, she said, "If my son still thinks of you, he'll come back." She exited the shop. The bell above the door rang again, a soft, solemn punctuation. Emily remained seated, calm, not happy, not sad, just certain, more than ever. She didn't need permission to feel worthy. That afternoon, the sky was overcast, the wind flipping old newspapers along the sidewalk. Emily stepped into Glasswell Tower, the kind of place she once only passed by, never imagining she'd one day enter it, not out of curiosity, but because she was ready. She pressed the elevator button, watching the numbers rise. Her heart wasn't trembling, but her hand gripped her bag a little tighter. In her chest was a single thought. If I don't say it now, no one will ever know how ready I was to love the right way. Nathan's office was on the 38th floor, at the end of a quiet, glass-walled corridor, far from the chaos below. His assistant looked surprised to see her but didn't stop her. Perhaps the look in Emily's eyes said enough. She wasn't here to ask to stay. She was here to speak her truth. Nathan was standing by the window when she entered. Soft light hit his shoulders. He turned, startled. A part of him seemed to have wished she'd come, but still didn't quite believe it. "Emily, I'm not here to blame you," she said immediately, voice calm, "and I'm not here to beg for anything." Nathan nodded, saying nothing. "I just need to say this clearly." She stepped closer, her eyes unwavering. "I don't need you to protect me. I need you to stand with me." The room seemed to freeze for a few seconds. Nathan looked at her, long and deep, then slowly sat on the edge of his desk, exhaling like he'd been holding that breath for weeks. "I was scared," he said. That simple truth softened something in Emily's chest. "I was scared the media would hurt you, scared my mother wouldn't accept it, scared you'd hate my world, and most of all, scared I'd lose you. So I left, thinking if I ended it myself, at least I'd still be in control." Emily didn't get angry, because she understood. "You're used to deciding for others," she said softly. "You run a company, give orders, close deals, save people. But love doesn't work like that, Nathan." He nodded. "I know, but this is the first time I've had to learn how to let something just be, without controlling it." Silence settled again. Emily stepped closer, her voice steady and low. "If we still feel something, I don't need a pilot. I need someone who'll sit beside me, look in the same direction, and take responsibility with me." Nathan looked up. In his eyes was the light she remembered. Not the CEO's intensity, but the gaze of the man who once sat in a tiny bakery, waiting for a cup of black coffee. "I don't know if I'll get everything right," he said, "but I do know this. If you give me one more chance, this time I won't walk alone. I'll ask you, listen to you, and choose you every single day." Emily stepped forward, saying nothing. She just reached for his hand. That hand, once distant, once used to control, now held hers gently, not to possess, but to hold, and that was the true beginning. No more vague feelings. No more one-sided protection. No more fear. Just two people, once broken, once lost, choosing to return, not because they needed each other, but because they finally understood each other. After that conversation, there was nothing left unspoken between them. No more assumptions, no more silence, no more fear. Only two people who once chose to walk away, now choosing to stay. Their partnership didn't begin with grand gestures, but with small things. A cup of coffee brewed together each morning, a hand held on the walk home, a glance that quietly asked, "Are you okay?" Or, "Was today hard?" Their love no longer needed to prove itself, because the most beautiful thing they ever gave each other was the courage to walk back one more time. A few months after that conversation on the 38th floor, Emily received an acceptance letter from a nursing program, one she once thought she'd never qualify for. She didn't scream or cry. She just sat quietly, looking at the letter, fingers gripping it gently, as if holding a dream she was finally ready to believe in. Nathan was the first to know. He didn't say much, just wrapped her in a tight hug and whispered, "I'm prouder of you than anyone who's ever known you." Emily started over. She studied in the hospital by day, reviewed her notes at night, and picked up shifts at a small bakery near their new apartment on weekends. Life was busy, at times exhausting, but never empty like it had been before, because this time she wasn't walking alone. Around the same time, Nathan stepped away from his high-rise office and began working remotely, consulting for nonprofit projects and education startups. He said, "I used to think success meant standing at the top. Now I just want to stand where things feel real." One fall evening, after a simple dinner, pumpkin soup and toasted bread, Nathan quietly left the table, returned with a small box in his hand. He didn't kneel. There were no flowers, no candlelight, just honest eyes and one simple line. "I'm not waiting until I have everything, because all I want is enough of you. Will you marry me?" Emily opened the box. Inside was a plain gold ring. No gem, no intricate design, just simple and perfectly right. She didn't hesitate. She didn't ask for more. She smiled, nodded, and softly said, "Yes, as long as we face each day together, even the small ones." A few months later, they moved into a small apartment in a quiet neighborhood. Not luxurious, not tech-savvy, but it had warm sunlight, windows that opened to trees, and a cozy kitchen big enough for weekend meals made together. That's where real life began. They shared everything, not just rent or bills, but the smallest things. Who took out the trash, who reminded the other about classes, who made tea every late night. They no longer tried to be perfect. They just tried to know each other and show up for each other. On days Emily came home exhausted from her clinical shifts, Nathan would have the bath ready and her favorite book on the nightstand. On days when Nathan faced a failed project, Emily wouldn't say much, just placed her hand on his shoulder and sat beside him, long enough for him to feel less alone. Their love wasn't born out of scarcity or abundance. It lived in the in-between, folding laundry, planning groceries, laughing when the mop snapped in half. Again, it wasn't a fairy tale. It was a life honest enough to believe in and quiet enough to stay. 3 years later, there were no more big plot twists in their life, no more chasing each other through silence or questions left hanging between them. There was only one thing, clearer than ever. They had chosen each other. Every day, not out of convenience or fleeting passion, but out of mutual respect. Emily was now a pediatric nurse at a small hospital on the outskirts of Chicago. She still carried the same gentleness, but her eyes held a deeper steadiness, as if every scar, every struggle, every closed chapter had given her a quiet kind of strength. She would kneel down to meet crying children at eye level, holding their tiny hands with infinite patience. Colleagues said she had an unbreakable heart, but Emily knew better. Her heart had broken once, and that's why she knew how to help others heal. Nathan still worked, consulting on education-based projects, but he no longer lived inside a whirlwind of international calls and tense negotiations. He spent more time on the little things, planting more flowers in the garden, fixing the leaky faucet, jotting down Emily's favorite soup recipe for when she was tired. And sometimes he just stood at the sink, hands wet, looking out the window, watching Emily red in the sun, and thinking, peace isn't a place, it's a person. Their home sat on the quiet edge of the city, a small white house with a wooden fence and a garden that changed with the seasons. Every morning, Emily picked fresh herbs while Nathan made coffee. There were birdsong, sunshine, and laughter. Nothing was missing. Nothing needed to be added. Then one early spring morning, in a bathroom fogged with steam, a pregnancy test showed 2 faint lines. Emily stood still for minutes, didn't cry, didn't smile, just placed a hand on her belly and whispered, "Hello, little one." And in that whisper, the whole weight of the past years melted into something new. Quiet hope. Nathan found her in the kitchen, still holding the test. He didn't ask anything. He just looked at her. She nodded, eyes brimming, but glowing. He held her close, like he was holding something bigger than just a future. Not because they were having a child, but because from that moment on, they were not only choosing each other, they were choosing to raise something greater than themselves. Emily still worked, still cared for sick children, still came home with wrinkled sleeves and messy hair. Nathan still filled old jars with flowers, still patched the fence when storms knocked it loose. They were still themselves, but changed. Now, in that little house, there weren't just 2 people who had once learned how to love each other the right way. There was also a life growing quietly, nurtured by a love so steady, so simple, it no longer needed to be proven. It all began with a misspelled name on a coffee cup. Just a fleeting moment between 2 strangers. But sometimes it's the smallest things that lead us to the biggest ones. They doubted, feared, and walked away from each other, but what mattered most was they chose to come back. Not because it was easy, but because they were brave enough to try again, the right way. Their love wasn't born from perfection. It came from all the moments they stayed to fix what was broken, to ask better questions, to listen more, and to slow down for each other. They chose each other, not just on sunny days, but on rainy ones too. On tired nights, on quiet mornings when there wasn't much to say, but there was still breakfast on the table and a gentle kiss on the forehead. And in the end, they didn't have everything, but they had a little white house, a garden full of herbs, a partner to grow with, and soon, a tiny heartbeat growing quietly between them. All the result of a love nurtured by respect, honesty, and courage. Because true love isn't about avoiding every challenge. It's about choosing to face them, together, without letting go.